Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 37 of Bank to the Future Live. I am coming live from South Korea in Seoul, and it is Halloween for you, or maybe in your time zone, but for me, it's actually moved into the 1st of November, and I have just got off the plane, so we're slightly late today. But I wanted to make sure that the show still goes. So on this episode of Bank to the Future Live, we're going to do a very special Halloween special. So it's 31st of October. Hopefully everyone celebrates in that country. If not, it's a Halloween today. And for Halloween, we're going to actually cover from the archives 10, if we've got time, of the scariest moments in crypto. I prepared some content on 10 of those scary moments. And we got Famida moderating as usual. So Famida will let us know if we have any questions or let me know if we have any technical glitches. Do please use the live chat in order to ask those questions. We'll also be live on Twitter, and you can use the hashtag BF Live in order to get our attention if you're looking to get a question answered. Use the live chat, or if you're watching a recording, then remember to use the comment section and we'll try and return to those. Or maybe use the Telegram channel. We have a Telegram channel that we set up during our token sale, which is at BF_support. For those of you new to the show, if you're watching the show for the first time, this is our 37th episode, and this is dedicated to those that want to discuss all things Bank to the Future. But today we're going to take a slightly different angle, and that is that we're going to do our Halloween special on the 10 scariest moments in crypto, and we're going to count down from 10, and hopefully that all fits it within. At the same time, we do want to take any of your questions. So just before I do that, a few updates on what we've been up to. So last week in episode 36, we came live from Switzerland at an event I was speaking at, where I gave some history on the history of security tokens. And then it moved over to a panel where some of the other speakers at the event and myself were answering questions from Switzerland in Crypto Valley about some of the different economic trends and how crypto fits into that, and security tokens. So feel free to go back to episode 36 and review that. And then immediately I was in Milan, and then I had to head over to Switzerland in order to give a talk. It was a 1-hour drive. Famida was streaming that live, and it was a new format for us. And then I had to go straight over to China. And this week I have been giving presentations, started with Shenzhen for our China community. And then I moved over to Shanghai and then Beijing. It was actually a very exciting week in China. I always seem to time my trips to China with big events in crypto. One of the last times I was in China was when they did I was actually in Shanghai on a boat at a party for crypto people after a conference I spoke at. And the Chinese government announced that the crypto ban and the price of Bitcoin crashed from approximately $5,000 to $3,000, and then went on to a rampage up to $20,000 after China announced that they were banning cryptocurrency exchanges. One of the things I found very interesting in China was the amount of cryptocurrency exchanges still operating out of China. Couldn't quite figure out how the system works. But apparently, as long as you're not upsetting the government, things are moving forward. And at the same time, the president of China announced their desire to push forward with blockchain and become global leaders of blockchain and really push things forward. At the same time, we're seeing currency wars around the globe. And the Chinese government, or the People's Bank of China, is looking to get out their blockchain-based version of the Chinese yuan, the renminbi, before Facebook gets their currency out. So there's now global pressure. I talked about these trends a long time ago, before anyone, and how these blockchain-based fiat currencies or fiat-backed currencies are going to be issued by central banks. And that's going to rage currency wars between the central banks globally and also their retail banks. And they're going to allow their retail banks to go bust and bankrupt based upon their credit risk model and replace people's bank accounts with digital currencies. I'm still forecasting that trend going through. But it was really interesting to see these types of currency wars that are happening on the ground in China, and the government's level and the People Bank of China's their level of the PR, as it were, starting. They do things unless they're going to do things. I know China and crypto have had a deep history, flip-flopping back and forth. It's banned, it's not banned, it's banned, it's not banned, it's banned, it's not banned. It's interesting to see where these things are going now. So anyway, that's what's happening. I have a presentation in South Korea, in Seoul, tomorrow, and I'm meeting many of our more institutional investors. It is about 2 a.m. here in South Korea, and it has been a crazy couple of weeks, and I'm just kind of surviving on adrenaline right now in these exciting markets in crypto. However, let's go through the 10 scariest moments in crypto. So starting from the top, and also if we have time, I'll also obviously be going through some portfolio news. There were some really great announcements from companies like Bitso, who have pulled together an incredible funding round, and some other of our portfolio companies. If we've got time, I'll cover those. And remember, just in terms of pitches live, at the moment, the most popular pitch well into overfunding is Voltoro. We did a interview from Spain in Valencia with the Voltoro team. And they're now live and they're deep into overfunding. And remember how it works. In overfunding, the pitch can close at any point. So if you're interested in the gold to Bitcoin exchange, then they are live and in overfunding and ready to close when they want. Closing soon is Edge. Edge is the wallet, and Paul was on a previous episode of BF Live. And congratulations to Loyal on closing their Series B bridge round after an interview on Bank to the Future Live, where we discussed their new deal with Emirates Airlines. They closed and went into overfunding as well. We've currently got 4 deals we're working on. We're happy to announce that the card payments integration has now been complete. We'll be beta testing that, and we're launching our next big pitch, which will be our major one that we'll be focusing on very shortly, and that will be integrated with a new broker-dealer partnership, and also our new card payments and escrow services. So thank you for your patience while we get those ready. But we've currently got 4 deals all lined up before we close out and start moving into the end of the year. Can you believe it? 2020 is just around the corner. We're already into November. As always, our secondary market, we've currently got blockchain.com, we've got BitPay, we've got the Kraken SPV, we've got the Circle SPV, who recently spun out Poloniex, the crypto exchange, as the regulatory situation in US becomes more uncertain. And the deepest liquidity one, which is Bitfinex, and also Ripple Labs on the secondary market. So without further ado, let's get into the 10 scariest moments in crypto. I remember very clearly, round about the very first Bitcoin conference that I ever spoke at in 2011, I experienced a 90% crash from our Bitcoins. It was somewhere around $30 to $32, and they crashed 90% to $3. I actually told a bit more about this story, Charlie Schwem, on his Untold Stories podcast. If you head over to my Twitter, you'll see that recently, where I retweeted that and told some stories that I've never told before, given that it's Charlie Schwem's Untold Stories about those early days. So that 90% crash was really at a time when Bitcoin was so uncertain whether it would succeed. We were getting massive volatility, and the price just pumped up to $32. And shortly around that conference, it crashed down to $3, and was just a real Scary moment for the future of crypto. It had nowhere near the amount of market cap and attention that it has today. It had nowhere near as much mining power and hash power as it does today. And these were very scary moments in the history of Bitcoin. But I remember that was my very first. Now, many of you might have just experienced your first major crash from $20,000 down to $3,000, approximately 70%. And I know many of you new to crypto might find that a very scary thing. But I do remember what it was like when I experienced my first crash. And I've experienced quite a few more since. And so just have it be known that there are only 21 million of these things. 18 million approximately 18 million have already been mined. I'm sure that about 6 million are lost or out of circulation. And it really helps you build those strong hands and understand the value proposition of Bitcoin when you see these rebounds that come from these deep volatility as we continue this experiment with creating the world's best shot we've ever seen at achieving sound money. And hopefully you got through that and you're still fighting through, and you didn't get caught up in the fear and FUD and listening to people like Nouriel Roubini telling you that there's nothing to this. And hopefully you didn't buy that at 20,000 and sell it at 3. There's some of you that's done that. But hopefully you learn from that and continue and you don't let that put you off. But we survived the 90% crash from $30 to $3, and it made us all stronger. So that's the very first scary moment in crypto that I remember. Shortly after that, the scariest of the scariest was the Mt. Gox scenario. So Mt. Gox was one of the very first exchanges in crypto. It was based in Japan. It was actually sold from the founder or the person that created the Ripple XRP currency, Jeb McCaleb. He created an exchange and he sold it to a gentleman called Mark Capellas. And I really recommend, if you ever get a chance, to check out recent interviews with Peter McCormack from the What Bitcoin Did podcast, where he got exclusive interviews. He did a whole series on Mt. Gox, and he did an outstanding job. I really respect Peter McCormack as a crypto journalist. And he did a really great job of interviewing all the key players around the time about what happened to Mt. Gox. And it was Mark Capellas was got him. So, some say that he had bad intent. Others say that he was just incompetent. You make your own decision. And Mark Capellas actually comes out because of the legal case and the Mt. Gox saga. After it lost approximately 800,000 Bitcoin, almost 1 million Bitcoin, that are still in the hands of arbiters today, and people are trying to get their Bitcoins back because they follow traditional liquidation proceedings, as opposed to some other options that were used later that I'll cover in other scary moments. But when the Mt. Gox exchange, happened, it really felt like the end of crypto. It was really hard to see how we recovered from this. Approximately 70% of all the Bitcoins in circulation were being held at Mt. Gox. What you've got to appreciate and understand, it's not like it was today. It was extremely difficult to get a wallet and know how to secure Bitcoins. So most people just didn't do it. They instead gave them to Mt. Gox, who looked after them. Many people, many veterans had vast sums of Bitcoins out Mt. Gox because it was so hard to store them back then. It was only something that someone hugely technically literate could do. And we still are plagued with that today in Mt. Gox. The lesson is, remember, in crypto, not your keys, not your coins. Obviously things have moved forward a lot as we move to custodial solutions, more professional services. But really those were some really hard times when all those Bitcoins were just disappeared. And it really looked like it scared off a lot of people, and people were never going to return again, and really just write this off as some scam. And also to this day, so many people mistook the fact that storing Bitcoins at Mt. Gox, just like you would a bank, is exactly the same as banking. When you store your Bitcoins at Mt. Gox, they own your money. They showed that by seizing them, by having them, shutting them down. They can spend your money, and they can engage in fractional reserve banking, just like the Ponzi scheme of traditional currencies do. So it's very different to owning your own Bitcoin, spending your own Bitcoin, and have a monetary policy that's fixed, rather than a virtual balance at Mt. Gox that could exist as more Bitcoins than actually exist. So that was scary moment number 2. When Mt. Gox crashed, and we're still actually recovering from that. It set crypto back about 3 years, and we're still trying to explain that one. I think the next scary moment was a moment when we actually got the first major use case for Bitcoin, when WikiLeaks announced that they were going to start supporting WikiLeaks and funding WikiLeaks and allowing donations through Bitcoin. It was a pretty scary moment because some people were thinking Bitcoin's not ready for this kind of attention. It didn't have enough hash power. It wasn't censorship resistant enough at this stage. And it was going to create and attract negative attention when the developers believed that Bitcoin was not mature enough for it at that time. And it did. And it really proved that there is a use case for censorship resistant currencies. For those of you that read my book, Bank to the Future, I went through the WikiLeaks story in depth, when they were blockaded from Bank of America, PayPal shut them down, Visa shut them down, MasterCard shut down payments. Essentially, they were sanctioned from the traditional financial sector, and Bank of America said anyone that is caught contributing to WikiLeaks will have their bank account shut down. So WikiLeaks started accepting Bitcoins, and they were forced by the banking system into Bitcoin. And the funny thing is that Bitcoin performs so well for WikiLeaks that it actually funded WikiLeaks for many, many more years to come, because of the appreciation in value that they received as a result of receiving those donations and not being able to convert those into fiat currencies, creating one of the most profitable trades for a not-for-profit or organization of all time. And it didn't turn out so scary in the end, but I remember how scary it was at the time. Not knowing really what was going to happen as a result. Was the government going to have a way of shutting down Bitcoin? We didn't have the same level of understanding. The Bitcoin just wasn't at that resistant level. But it survived through that, created a brilliant use case, showing the world that money can still flow, even when you're doing completely, legitimate things that are furthering the world forward in terms of internet freedom and journalism and freedom of speech. And yet, for political reasons, the financial system can be used in order to censor, important information getting out to people for various reasons. And Bitcoin allowed that to continue, which I think is a step forward for freedom of speech and just generally important issues as a whole. So that was my third scariest moment.
Hey, Simon.
Hello,
Simon. I'm going to interrupt you now. Can I ask you a couple of questions that have come through the live chat?
Let's do that.
All right, hang on 1 second. Right, can you see me right there, Simon?
Yep, I can see you now.
Grr.
Oh, wow. You've been hiding for the big reveal.
What's going on? All right.
Awesome.
I don't have any fangs, unfortunately. I'm really sorry about that, but yeah. All right, so in the live chat, we have had a couple of questions come through. There's one here that's asking Simon, do you think Satoshi even lost the private keys, and that's the reason why those funds never moved?
My personal perspective, and I have no inside information about who Satoshi Nakamoto is. I just speculate just as much as you, but I personally believe that Satoshi Nakamoto is no longer with us. I think that Hal Finney is a very prime candidate. I think there's a lot of people that could be Satoshi Nakamoto. I believe that those private keys belong to somebody that can no longer access them. Yeah, I don't have any deep inside information. I've got lots of people that tell me they know. I've had lots of and reasons. But my personal belief is that those coins are gone forever. But we will find out over the years. And we will continue to speculate on whether those coins can ever be accessed. And we all know that there's some people out there that claim that they're going to do that next year. And we'll see someone that's trying to push a hard forked version of Bitcoin. We all know who that is.
All right, cool. Can I ask you one more question?
Go for it.
Is it possible BTC is reverting to its growth / pump behavior of its earlier years? A few notable people have been saying this on crypto Twitter.
Yeah, so Bitcoin just throughout the years has gone through its cycles of feeling like it's stabilizing, feeling like it's becoming more mature, and then we have phases of mass, volatility again. Bitcoin is always going to be an ultra volatile asset when you're thinking in terms of your local currency. So if you, and that's going to continue for an awful long time, I believe. We're speculating on whether Bitcoin is going to become a store of value, median of exchange, and unit of account. And there's a million things that are going to happen along that journey. And that creates the opportunity for people to undervalue and overvalue. I believe that my long-term perspective of what Bitcoin is and what it means to the world is significantly undervalued today compared to what it actually is. But in relation to, it's really interesting when I was in China because they actually really, really use USDT Tether as a real medium of exchange out there. In many senses, I needed to use USDT in order to pay for certain things while I was out there. But the volatility of Bitcoin is always going to be a feature of it. It's what will stop it at this stage being a median of exchange and unit of account, because when people are paying rent in one currency and the currency that they are earning becomes worth a lot less or more based upon volatility, it's very hard for people to plan their lives around that. So is why the store of value use case seems to be where it's moving, but it's also a lot of speculation in between. So it does feel like we're getting our wild swings and wild volatility days, but they're done on much, much deeper volume, much, much deeper fundamentals. And quite frankly, the risk profile of Bitcoin today is significantly less than what it was back in those days when it really was uncertain whether this would succeed or get to where it is today. And now fast forward to today, it's having an impact in the global financial markets and changing every aspect of finance, politics, and government, where the whole world is debating to how they're going to adjust to this technology.
All right, I'm going to leave you to it, Simon. Just keep doing what you're doing, go through that list. I'm going to go through my live chat questions.
Awesome. Okay, so we now have number 4 scariest moment. This one was a real scary moment, which was the shutdown by the FBI of Silk Road. For those of you that don't know the story, Silk Road was really a scary moment and an exciting moment for Bitcoin, because it was one of the first use cases, which was allowing people to purchase things that the government doesn't want you to purchase, i.e. drugs. And Silk Road created a marketplace whereby it became a place where people no longer needed to go on the streets and deal with drug dealers and risk getting involved in drug crime and and muggings and all sorts of stuff that can happen when you consume face to face and have to deal with people on the black underground market. But Silk Road came along and created a safe place for people, and created a very efficient market for people that wanted to consume and trade with each other. And it had a very efficient review system where people could actually find out whether they were being poisoned based upon other people's experience, the quality of it, how organic it was versus how chemically enhanced it was. And it needed a currency in order to allow people to trade, and Bitcoin became that currency on the Silk Road. It created one of the most efficient marketplaces out there, and really started to have a reduction in drug crime on the streets as a result of people being able to purchase in the safety of their own house. But Silk Road became this ginormous, anonymous success story that really that gave a lot of negative attention to Bitcoin. It actually led to, many governments around the world thinking that Bitcoin is just a currency for drug dealers. There certainly is a use case in the efficiency of the Silk Road markets. But really, it drove a lot of adoption to Bitcoin, and it gave people a reason to use Bitcoin. And it was the first use case, an important part of the history of Bitcoin. And when it got shut down, it felt like one of the primary reasons the early use cases of Bitcoin was taken away, and therefore that was going to create a lot of sell pressure. The price of Bitcoin crashed immediately, but to my surprise, it had a really big positive rebound effect shortly after. And it actually led to one of the early pumps. And I'm not sure if I'm getting my crypto history timing right, but I believe that this was round about the time that Cyprus started to bail in people's money from their banks, and they started to confiscate money, and people started to learn the importance not just of censorship resistance, the ability to own your own money, like people experienced when using WikiLeaks, but also the ability to spend your own money and not have it taken like it did with the Cyprus people. When the financial system and the banks in Cyprus started experiencing challenges, they just used people's deposits in order to recapitalize the bank and just stole people's money. They're legally entitled to do that. And that really led to the second pump, where people started to learn the importance of unconfiscatable money, censorship resistant money with WikiLeaks, and also unconfiscatable money with the Cyprus story. But the Silk Road timing, it initially led to a big crash, and it really was a scary moment in crypto's history. But it actually turned out that it was a very good moment and led to a big pump afterwards, shortly afterwards. As people started to adjust to the news, the FBI seized all those Bitcoins, and it turned out that the FBI sold those Bitcoins to venture capitalists. And it turns out that the FBI is allowed to profit from the proceeds of crime and do legalized money laundering. As they sold the Bitcoins to the venture capitalists in the auction markets, and Bitcoin moved on. But for many, many years, and still to this day, it is still known in people's mind as a currency for drug dealers, and therefore they start to attach all sorts of things and blame Bitcoin for terrorism financing and all these evil things, even though there's a blockchain, and quite frankly, having a transparent, immutable ledger record of every transaction from the proceeds of crime is probably a really bad way of doing things. Obviously, the US dollar and cash is still the king way of conducting money laundering. But anyway, it was a very scary moment in Bitcoin's history. Silk Road created a lot of negative attention. It also created one of the first major use cases. And once the Silk Road got shut down, Bitcoin could move forward. And really, that was the start of when people started to, once we got through that, more and more people started to think of different use cases for Bitcoin, and more use cases started to prevail. So the Silk Road closure was the number 4 scariest moment in crypto history. After that, we had a lot of development in crypto. The venture capitalists all started to pile in. The banks started to create their propaganda around, we hate Bitcoin, but we love blockchain. And then none of them created anything useful on blockchain, and we're still to that day today. But it was all anti-Bitcoin, and now everyone's more Bitcoin is the reputable thing. The rhetoric has changed very much. Number 5 scariest moment in crypto history was the next major exchange hack, which was the Bitfinex hack. I've missed the Bitcoinica story, where there was an exit scam, and Bitcoinica was one of the major exchanges, and essentially they just exit scammed. There's lots of crypto history, you can go through the archives. But the Bitfinex hack was a really scary one. 119,000 Bitcoins were stolen from Bitfinex as a result of an integration between Bitfinex and BitGo. So BitGo is the solution that many people use as a multi-signature wallet. And Bitfinex wanted to actually implement a transparency index, whereby rather than holding all of the coins in one centralized wallet like a bank, they wanted to have individual wallets for every single customer and automate deposits and withdrawals for every single customer, where they could provably show that they had all the Bitcoins for each customer, and you could check on the blockchain that Bitfinex had the money that belonged to you, rather than creating the Mt. Gox scenario. The only problem was the BitGo integration with Bitfinex created a new vulnerability that a hacker took advantage of through the API key, and led to the hacker getting away with stealing 119,000 Bitcoins, valued at approximately $72 million at the time. It was a very scary moment, because we'd all been through the Mt. Gox scenario, we'd been through the Bitcoinica exit scam, and Bitfinex hack was it looked like it was going to be another Mt. Gox scenario. Fortunately, the team came up with an outstanding recovery story. If you'd like to see that, check out the Bank to the Future archives. If you type in Bank to the Future Bitfinex case study, it was one of my favorite stories, the recovery. We met with the Bitfinex team, and we put together a structure with them whereby tokens were launched and they could convert them to equity. And it became the second most profitable investment on the Bank to the Future platform, and had a real happy ending for those that actually were victims of the hack. It's really interesting today that you can still follow the wallet address. Those coins are still there in the hacked wallet address, but some of them have been recovered and some of them have been moved. And when they were moved, it led to the arrest of certain people. And we're still going to see what happens to those recovered tokens. Bitfinex actually became their first real resilient recovery from what looked like a very, very scary moment in both Bitfinex and crypto history. So that's number 5, the Bitfinex hack. We're halfway through. How are we doing for time? So I think the number 6 scariest moment in crypto was the DAO, the infamous DAO. We'd been through the Ethereum ICO. Vitalik was trying to create the ability to create tokens on Bitcoin. That later led to projects like what is now known as Omni. It was originally known as Mastercoin. The very first ICOs came along. And all of a sudden, many of the Bank to the Future portfolio companies started to engage in new token models. And this new thing called tokens came along. And the Ethereum co-founders all got together and thought about how to disrupt the financial markets and venture capital altogether, and essentially created a totally illegal security called the DAO. Obviously, for years, we'd been involved in how to do securities laws, how to compliantly do, working with regulators in order to change laws to allow for people to do funding online. And the Ethereum team came along, wanted to create one of the first major use cases, and they thought they could create a decentralized venture capital fund. and they raised approximately up to 150 million in a very quick period of time, and that was very scary for the venture capitalists. But at Bank to the Future, we were forecasting disaster here because we just knew these were securities. It didn't comply with securities laws. This was not going to end pretty, and eventually it led to showing that there was a hack of the DAO smart contract that led to it was a very strange, controversial issue because it was really a bug in the code that led to the smart contract, the hacker, essentially playing with the rules and actually legitimately gaining access to those funds because it was playing by the rules in the smart contract. It also led to a very scary moment in Ethereum's history because the price of Ethereum significantly crashed as a result. If I remember my crypto history, it was on a tear before that, from $1 to approximately $25, and the DAO hack took it down 50% to around about $12 to $10. For those crypto historians, I might be completely wrong. That's just memory serves me. And the DAO hack really looked like Ethereum was over at that stage. And a very ignorant failed experiment in decentralized venture capital and violation of securities laws. The interesting thing was that led to the interesting debate around hard forks, where Ethereum essentially created a hard fork, which essentially reversed the chain, took back the DAO hackers' tokens because many of the Ethereum co-founders were lost a significant amount of money as a result of this. And they showed that the Ethereum chain is not quite as immutable as the Bitcoin chain, and showed that people who have significant influence can influence the future in reversing chains. And that led to the Ethereum classic, Ethereum saga, where they realized after celebrating a successful hard fork, this bogey called Ethereum Classic came along, which was the original chain of Ethereum and the second version of Ethereum. And it was this whole politics around what is a hard fork? What does it mean if there's these two tokens? And what is the real version? And that really started that whole debate. But that was a very scary moment in crypto history. Some were watching on the sidelines as spectators, but it also furthered the argument and the engagements around crypto is not necessarily law, which was the mantra at the time when the DAO hack came along. So number 6 scariest moment in crypto history was the DAO. Number 7 was really a very scary moment for me, which was as the scaling debate around Bitcoin started to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and people started to forget that the real enemy here was banks, and the crypto community all started to turn on each other and really make a spectacle out of crypto as we had this public debate that would normally happen within the boardroom of a company in private, but as this is an open source movement, the dirty laundry was shown to everybody as the crypto community all started to turn on each other, make wild accusations at each other, create conspiracy theories at each other, and it really led to a really dark moment in history as the crypto community that was prior to this united around a single goal and a common enemy of showing that we could create a financial system outside the Ponzi scheme of fiat currencies. And the scaling debate really split people, led to people having accusations at each other, really bringing out the worst in many people, but also really moving forward education. Prior to this, the debates around whether you had big blocks or small blocks were really things that only really, development community really understood. But the scaling debate had a good side effect, which was really bringing to the forefront education and really moving forward the debate. And it ended up with, Bitcoin and a hard fork of Bitcoin, and really people learning for the first time that you can't just create another version and expect it to be Bitcoin. And all the debates that came from that as a result of mass manipulation that happened afterwards, where people that had significantly sized positions in Bitcoin, that were early Bitcoin adopters, use their Bitcoins in order to try and stimulate a crash in the price and stimulate a pump in the Bitcoin cash price that almost sent some of the most profitable companies in crypto bankrupt later as a result of trying to manipulate the markets and fear people into using these alternative versions of what they consider to be Bitcoin versus the current ones. It was a very scary moment. It was a dark moment in crypto history, but I think we still have those debates right now. But the communities have moved on, and people have started to see. And I do hope, to this day, that egos don't get the better of the development community and the decision makers. And if it turned out that Bitcoin needs bigger blocks, or whether it turns out that Lightning isn't the best scaling solution, then we could reach consensus as a community and really look at the important scaling solutions for Bitcoin, but recognizing that there is only one Bitcoin that we have, and it's the most important thing that we've seen, and it's not easily replicatable, even though we can have these other experiments with how to scale Bitcoin that I hope that Bitcoin can learn from, and the ego doesn't get the best of the community, and we can really reach consensus on these things as we need to moving forward. So scary moment number 7 in crypto history was definitely the scaling debate. I've got a few more scaling debate in crypto, scaling debate. Scary moment number 8 in crypto history is still going on today, and it was the ginormous Ponzi scheme called OneCoin. This is still going on today. It's a really sad moment in crypto, using the confusion that people have around Bitcoin, the complexities of Bitcoin, and really taking advantage of innocent people and just point blank scamming them out of their money. And this OneCoin thing, if you look back at the archives, just masses and masses of innocent people being scammed under the geyser of fake cryptocurrencies that have zero substance, zero to them, and just really taking advantage of innocent people, and them believing, because of the way it was structured as an MLM Ponzi scheme, that they're stuck in this moment where they're defending something which is based upon no substance and nothing. And people thinking that, this is a bigger, better version than Bitcoin. And people still defending it and scamming more people into it. There was recently a BBC expose on people
Hello, everyone. It looks like Simon may have just disappeared. Maybe the internet dropped, or maybe his power died on his laptop. I'm just waiting for people to let me know in the chat. If you can let me know, has it stopped for you? What's going on? Because it's just stopped for me. Yeah, frozen. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Can you see? You can't see Simon then. It's just me, isn't it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Halloween indeed. Okay, I don't know whether Simon's going to be able to join us back in time. Can he? Yes, he has. Was that trick or treat, Simon?
Yeah, my internet's a bit shaky in the hotel at the moment. I've just switched to my 4G. Hopefully, that's giving a better connection. How does it sound?
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming back.
Okay. Did you hold up the fort?
Well, I was just saying, looks like it's just my face here. So glad to see your face back here. Everyone else is happy. Good. Let's carry on.
Okay, all right. So where was I? I was on the OneCoin scam. This is a real dark, and it's not even a cryptocurrency, but it was being, the OneCoin was being sold to so many innocent people, and it still is to this day. It was in the end, billions of dollars had just been stolen from people. I was telling the story about how we were on our way to a wedding, and the co-founder of Bank to the Future, Ballistics, and was having a makeup artist tell her about how excited they were that they've invested in this OneCoin thing. And they were deliberately targeting people that just knew nothing about crypto, didn't know any better, and just blinding them and just straight out scamming them. I hope these people get their karma. Some people have gone to prison, some people are getting away with it. But it's a really dark moment when we were like explaining to these people, you have been scammed. You need to try and get the money out, and them saying, not believing it, in denial at first. Saying, sorry, I've been involved in crypto from the beginning, and they were trying to tell me how OneCoin was better than Bitcoin, and it's a really dark moment, and I hope karma really has its toll on those and the innocent people that were bringing other people in. But OneCoin started to really feel like a systemic risk event in crypto, that it was going to drive so many innocent people into crypto, and they were going to start to think that Bitcoin is the same as OneCoin and they would never know the difference, and that this thing is just a scam. Really dark moment, really scary moment in crypto history. Number 9 was the moment that I talked about at the beginning of this broadcast, which was the China ban. I remember this was at the height of the ICO frenzy and craze, where whatever you put your money into, you were instantly getting 10x, 20x, 100x on your money, and every scammer in the world was coming to crypto. Even legitimate projects, everything. It was just like this frenzy of money as the crypto markets went through a major bubble, and it was fueled upon the ICOs that were being built on top of Ethereum, and there was just attracting so many people in our internet boom and bust cycle equivalent, called the ICO boom and bust cycle. Out of that, I do actually believe that there will be a few tokens that actually is a scarcity of tokens. It's filtered out a lot of the crap right now. And I think that there's a few projects that have been through this whole bear market that resulted of that. And as we adjust to the security token market, there's going to be some very interesting models that come from that. And we look forward to developing our Bank to the Future token as well further, as a result of being actually the people that are still here, that are looking to actually do legitimate things with those tokens. And as the regulations become clearer, there's really exciting things that a company can do with these tokens, as the regulatory environment adjusts. However, the China ban I was actually in Shanghai at the time. If you look through the YouTube archives, I did a live broadcast on the World Crypto Network with Tone Vase and Thomas Hunt, and I was broadcasting live as people were really scared of being arrested in China. I was stuck on a boat with one of the projects that we'd invested in, which is Polymath. Trevor, the founder of Polymath, and many other people. But I remember we were on a boat in Shanghai as the crypto ban announcement happened. The price of Ethereum crashed. The price of Bitcoin went from $5,000 to $3,000. And I remember some police boats going past our boat in Shanghai, and everyone thinking that everyone was about to be arrested for being in China at the time of the crypto exchange ban. I'd gone to visit many of the major crypto exchanges, whether that be I was at the Huobi office and the OKX office, the BTCC by Bobby Lee that's no longer. And it was a really scary moment in crypto history. But we'd been through that many times prior to that. China had been a constant up and down in crypto history. They were the first to ever release a national TV documentary on Bitcoin, and they only put things on TV in China if the government wants them to be there. That led to one of the major crypto pumps, and then they flip-flop back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now we're in the latest side of that flip-flop, as it seems like China's getting ready to embrace this technology again. And that was the 9th scariest moment in crypto, the China ban. The 10th and final scary moment in crypto is, I think, Bitfinex, the Twitter account, when he started creating the Tether FUD and the Tether fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Tether was a cryptocurrency that was created by the same team at Bitfinex. And it was created on the Omni protocol when Bitcoin was the only way to create tokens. And it was designed as a way to get over a banking problem, that sending money, fiat money from one exchange to another was a major problem. And the Tether team were pitching all the different cryptocurrency exchanges, trying to get them to use it. No one was interested in using Tether. It had extremely low volume and just was not something that that people use. In roundabout 2016, there was only a couple of crypto to crypto exchanges prior to that. There was some early ones that exit scams like Cryptsy and MCX Now, and some really dodgy ones. There was many of them. But then Bittrex and Poloniex came along, and they really were the only crypto to crypto exchange back then. There was, not much volume in anything outside Bitcoin, and you had to have banking partnerships to make an exchange work. But then Tether came along, and companies like Binance got hold of Tether and realized that they could outsource their banking relationship to Tether. And essentially the crypto to crypto market grew like crazy, and Binance grew like crazy as a result of not having to deal with banks and instead passing the banking bomb onto Bitfinex, and billions started to pile in. And this Tether became just bigger than anyone could ever imagine. And $4 billion was being held, and that started to get attention from banks. And then there was the Wells Fargo case. And really moving billions and billions of dollars with all these crypto exchanges like Binance using Tether, bringing more and more dollars in, started to create lots of attention. And lots of conspiracy theories and fear and FUD stories where people were saying that Tether's being used in order to manipulate the crypto markets. To me, it's pretty simple. As Bitcoin price goes up, more people want to deposit dollars. As more people deposit dollars, more Tethers get created because it was backed by dollars. But Bitfinex and various other accounts were creating fear in the crypto market, saying that that it was being used to manipulate the markets, and still to this day has led to this ongoing case with Bitfinex and the New York Attorney General, and now someone coming along and claiming that because of this manipulation, that Bitfinex owes them $1.4 trillion in what is a very laughable case that needs to be defended. But it was very scary when Tether, I think it reached a low when it started to lose its peg as a result of all these stories that were being shared. And I think at one point it lost its peg and was at about 90 cents on the dollar. And people were starting to arbitrage and get free trades that led to an exodus of dollars out of Tether as people were trying to arbitrage and get their free 10% returns. And led to some very scary moments in the history of crypto as a result of that. So that is my 10 scariest moments in crypto. Before we go through anything else, I'm just going to summarize for you. The first scariest moment in crypto was the 90% crash from $30 to $3 when I was very early to Bitcoin. The second scariest moment in crypto was the Mt. Gox closure and bankruptcy. The third scariest moment was the WikiLeaks announcement. The fourth scariest moment was the Silk Road closure. The fifth scariest moment was the Bitfinex hack. The sixth scariest moment was the DAO smart contract hack. The seventh scariest moment was the scaling debate. The eighth scariest moment was the OneCoin scam. The ninth scariest moment was the China ban of exchanges. And the 10th scariest moment was Tether FUD. I could cover many other things, but the story of creating sound money still continues, and still to this day will create many more scary moments and many more Halloween stories. I think we can make this an annual thing. And next time, maybe I'll be a werewolf if I'm not getting off a plane in South Korea, trying to make this episode of BF Live. So for me, though, we can either go to some portfolio news or we can cover some questions in the last, I think, 5 or 10 minutes because we started slightly late.
Well, actually, we got a couple of questions in the live chat, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we got one actually from our very own Aman. Interestingly, it's Bitcoin's 11th birthday today. 11 years ago, the Bitcoin white paper was released. Did Satoshi release it on Halloween deliberately, or is it just a coincidence?
I do not know the answer to that question. I personally, there's different schools of thoughts of Satoshi's, motivations for releasing the white paper and creating Bitcoin. But my personal belief is it was in reaction to the financial crisis. And the reason that I got into crypto was because that was real aligned for our vision, some of the things that we were working on, Bliss Dixon and myself at the time. But whether it coincided with Halloween, I know that there's a couple of things. If you check the archives of the crypto historians around some of those early motivations, there will always be speculation around these things. But the 11th birthday of the white paper, that's a fascinating thing that how far we've come in this 11 years. So thanks for sharing that, Aman.
Okay, cool. So actually someone's asked here, did Simon ever lose anything in these hacks?
I really don't want touch wood. The biggest hack that I was a part of was the Bitfinex one, but that ended up as a good story. Fortunately, I did not lose in the Mt. Gox hack. I know many people that did, and the Bitcoinica one as well. That wasn't something that I was victim of, fortunately. But we all make mistakes in crypto. We've all learned the hard way. But fortunately, I didn't need to learn those mistakes, and it wasn't too disastrous for me, although it was disastrous for many others. I had a happy ending and not a scary one as a result of those hacks.
Cool. Well, I've lost my first bits of Bitcoin that was ever given to me because I lost my phone. And back then it was the Bitcoin wallet on the actual phone itself. So God knows what happened.
And that was pretty early, if I remember.
Yeah, that really was. All right, someone here, Julio Yu, has said, I want to be a citizen of Simon's Citadel in the future.
Okay, you're most welcome.
Got a question here. How far is altcoin IO with BnkToTheFuture decentralized secondary market exchange? Can we have more info on the release date, please? And what new utility will BFT have?
Yeah, I think in the next episode, we should start to share some screenshots. We're currently working on integration between the exchange and the BnkToTheFuture identity. The altcoin.io team are starting to share their ideas around decentralized identity solutions and how we can do that for moving this into the security token market. There's a big R&D piece of work that needs to be done. The developers are actually starting to engage the decentralized identity movements, and we'll start to share some screenshots. We've already got some Bank to the Future token trading pairs up with DAI and Tether and Ethereum. And we've gone through the rebrand. We'll start to actually publish the rebrand. But major thing that we're working on at the moment is the integration with our Bank to the Future identity solution as a test case, because we're really excited about this, about being able to create a solution for cryptocurrency exchanges that want to get into the security token ecosystem. That, I think, is going to be a major development for Bank to the Future as we start to adjust from more centralized solutions to more decentralized solutions. But this industry is still a long way to go with security tokens. I'm predicting a few trends. So obviously one of our first major trends was investments that worked out well was Bitcoin itself and then Ethereum. But the first big winner in the equity space was obviously cryptocurrency exchanges. Things that we're looking at the moment are both centralized and decentralized finance. The buzzword at the moment is DeFi, decentralized finance, but also centralized lending as a result of crypto collateral. I think that's the next big growth area in crypto. And then finally, security token ecosystem. We're looking to bring more and more deals around those. We think that the collateralized lending and decentralized finance is going to be in a growth phase and is only going to grow from here. Securities token has still got a lot to go, and I've been meeting many people out in the ecosystem as a result of these trips. And really a lot of our portfolio companies are coming to us and asking about how they can adjust to the security token ecosystem. But there's a lot to build, there's a lot to do. And the altcoin.io acquisition was our first step into moving into that space. And there's still a lot more work, but we published the updated roadmap. I think we've been distracted with a few things, but one of the things we need to do is make sure we publish that blog with the Trello board where we had the live roadmap where people can give feedback. I think it's actually there, but it was pending sign off. Let's return to that. So we need to get that published for you because we've got a live roadmap and that goes through exactly the time frame on that. We got really distracted, unfortunately, with having to change our card payment processor, an automated part of our deposits and withdrawals, change our escrow provider, change our banking partner. That cost us about 6 months of our roadmap because we really wanted to do the portfolio section. And having to change all those was just such a disruptive part of our roadmap. But thankfully, we're on the other side of that. And in order to do the automated deposits and withdrawals, we had to really integrate with a lot of compliance partners that allows us to speed up the process. But we're happy to say that we're at the other side of that. I think next we're looking at more solutions to the Bank to the Future identity portfolio section, and then we'll start giving more updates on the exchange and the other products. I reckon that's us on the hour right now.
Is it? You want to answer one more question?
Sure. Let's make that the last one.
I actually want to know the answer to this one. Is Simon a Bitcoin guy or a Bitcash guy?
So as somebody that's an investor in many parts of the ecosystem, I try not to get involved in crypto politics. All I can say to you is that Bitcoin is the world's best shot we will ever have at achieving sound money. And I don't think there ever is going to be another Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is a unique thing that was created at a time when nobody cared by people that nobody cared about and people don't know who they are. It's a it has properties that are very hard to replicate and is the world's best shot at achieving sound money. Now, if other people want to experiment with what happens when you have bigger blocks. If people want to experiment with that in order to achieve a different vision for what they think the future of Bitcoin is, then I don't really have a problem with that. I try and maintain good relationships. You know, we know who we're talking about. I've always had a good relationship with Roger Ver. I think he's done things that I wouldn't necessarily have done, but my deep belief is that he does things for the right reasons because he cares about this ecosystem. And whether you agree or disagree with, you know, what he believes the future of Bitcoin is, I think it's very frustrating that it got so toxic, and that you know, in order to get the most for one of these, you have to slag off the other. What I'd refer to you is an appeal I gave to the crypto community. I created a video at one of the Anarchapulco events, which was an interview on a radio show. I forget the name of the radio show. The guys that are based in Austin, Texas. And it was appealed to the crypto community to remember who our true enemy is. That is the banks that are our true enemy. And that we need to remember that, and to question things, but not necessarily question the integrity of certain people, and try to see what, things for what they actually are. So the YouTube video that I refer to you on this debate is, I think the video title was something along the lines of Bitcoin, time to stop bitching and stop debating, something like that. You'll find it. You'll just see it was on a radio show at the last Anarchapulco. And I tried to articulate my thoughts on this subject as much as I could. But I'm a Bitcoin guy. I just think Bitcoin is not something that's easy replicatable. It's the world's best shot we've ever received, and I truly live in gratitude to Bitcoin. I think it's something that needs to be respected. I think it's something that everyone does need to remember where we came from. And I have so much respect and gratitude for what Bitcoin's going to give to the world. And there is only one of those. So that's my answer on that. That's the final question, a great place to stop. And that's going to do it for episode 37 of Bank to the Future, live on the 10 scariest moments in crypto, other than Famida dressing as a werewolf on the 31st of October 2019. So look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that. I am going to crash burn. I haven't actually eaten today, so I'm going to get some room service and go to sleep. Thank you very much. Over and out.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.